Hi! So the three books that I've chosen to do, my first one is called Just Ask, and it is by Sonia Sotomayor. And basically the description of this book is a group of friends all work together to plant a garden, and as they do so, they discuss the differences between them and, how it makes them feel and what people may see. The ages are 4 to 8 years old. This is the cover. And I just marked a few of the pages that I wanted to show. Page as they are going into the garden. Another one shows some of the characters, two of the children which are blind. The other page shows two more characters, which are children who have autism. The book is fantastic, very, very sweet, and basically, overall description of the book is Sonia and her friends work together in the garden. They discuss the differences of the garden and the different plants and how every plant, needs more sunlight or less sunlight, and some need more water, less water, and the differences that every plant has, but they're all beautiful and, different in their own way. Sonia starts out and they discuss how if you're ever curious of why they look different or why things, you can ask, to always just be polite and ask. And, some may be uncomfortable about discussing their differences, but other kids might be really excited to talk about their differences. So for instance, Sonia has diabetes. So she has to use the insulin and she has to put shots in her arm. And so she discusses if you ever see that it's okay and that she's okay and it's just her medicine and that it just keeps her healthy. And then as the book goes along, it moves into different friends. You have Raphael, who has asthma, so he has to use an inhaler like a tool, and he discusses how he feels about it and the questions he gets asked. And then it goes on to Anthony, who uses a wheelchair to move around, and how he's still very, very fast, but he just can't run with his legs. Madison has a guide dog. She's blind, but then her friend Arturo is blind as well, but he uses a cane. So they both have the same disability, but that they use it different ways to help them. So she has a dog and he has a cane. Vijay is deaf, so it discusses how he uses his hands to communicate. So he can see, but he can't hear. So he also has a loss of sense, but he uses his hands. Bianca has dyslexia, so she discusses that she's not a fan of reading and writing and that it can be hard for her, but she loves art. And then you have Jordan, who has autism, and he likes to count and he really likes to organize and he loves dinosaurs, and so he talks about dinosaurs a ton. But then you have Tiana, who also has autism, but she is nonverbal, so she doesn't like to talk, unlike Jordan, who loves to talk. So even though they have the same thing, they are both very different. Anne speaks with a stutter, so she has a hard time expressing herself and it can take a little bit longer. And Julia wiggles a lot and likes to make sounds because she has Tourette syndrome. Manuel has ADHD, so he likes to move a lot and gets very frustrated when he has to sit too long. Nolan is allergic to nuts, so he has to be very careful and stay safe by not touching nuts or eating nuts. And then Grace has Down syndrome, and even though she has Down syndrome, may look a little different, she loves to sing and talk and dance and play with her friends. So then as the book ends, or as it goes through, they discuss the questions they get asked and how some questions can be hurtful and you have to ask them in a certain positive, polite way, and then sometimes they may not want to answer, and other times they may be really excited to answer. So it just discusses the questions to ask and how to go about it. And as the book goes on, it also asks questions which I really like to the reader. For instance, how do you use your senses? So for Madison, she can't see. And so how do we use our senses? Because she doesn't have the sense of sight. And then another question is, what do you like to talk about? Because like they said, Jordan loves to talk about dinosaurs. So what's something your favorite thing to talk about? So I really thought that book was great. A great activity besides, obviously discussing the differences and showing all that stuff. I think a great hands-on activity would be a garden. I work with pre-K students, so I thought about we garden every year anyways, and having the students select different plants, and we learn about those plants and how each plant is different, and look into them and talk about, how, like, again, some need more water, some need more light, where should we put them, and just planting and kind of discussing the differences as well as connecting it to the book. So that is my first book, which is Just Ask. My second book is my favorite. It is Sol We by Lupita Nyong, and it is the most beautiful book. And the illustrator, it's a hard name, but Shanti Harrison, I think, and the pictures are absolutely gorgeous. But it tells the story of a young girl who is born into a family that is a little bit light-skinned compared to her. Like, they are more light-skinned to her, and for some reason she came out darker. And her sister, who is light-skinned, gets very positive kind of, comments, and, talked about how pretty she is, and her skin tone being compared to like honey and really beautiful words. And then for Solwi, her skin tone gets compared to more darker stuff and can be used in more of a negative light. So she feels less pretty, and she feels very embarrassed of her skin. So this book is for 4 to 8 years. Did I say that about the other book? The other book was also 4 to 8 years, if I didn't say that. But this book is 4 to 8 years old, preschool to 3rd grade. And like I said, it discusses Solwi and during her whole process of going through and understanding her skin tone and appreciating it. And so, you see pictures of her family, and you see pictures of her. And at one point in the book, she does try to do everything she can to lighten her skin tone. And it goes from her using an eraser on her skin to see if she can lighten it, as well as her trying to eat the lightest and brightest foods, hoping that maybe that would make the skin glow as, outwards. And then she gets so desperate to the point where she prays to the Lord and literally asks him if he can change her skin color. And the next morning when she wakes up and realizes it didn't work, she is obviously very distraught, and ends up going to her mother, who discusses like what her name means, which Solwi means star, and discusses how beautiful she is, and how the beauty is within, and just a really sweet moment. But as she goes to sleep that night, she is still very obviously upset, and a star actually comes to her, a shooting star comes to her window and tells her to hop on. And as the star and Solwi soar into the sky, the star begins to tell her the story of day and night and how it came about. And so it discusses how day and night were sisters, and even though they were both very beautiful, they were treated very differently. You had Day, who was, more appreciated it, and people use the words like pretty and words like happy, like associated with her. And then at nighttime, a lot of the words that were associated were scary or bad or ugly. And so Night was very upset because she was so hurt by this. And so she decided to leave, and that she was going to no longer be there. So when she left, Day obviously grew longer, and it was never ending. And the people were excited at first, but then they realized that it was so hot, and they were so miserable, and they could not sleep, and the crops weren't growing like they should be because they were getting too much sun. And they realized they were missing Night and how affected they were. So Day goes out to find her sister and convinces her to come back, and how she will be treated differently. And when she does come back, the people rejoiced and were so excited because now they could sleep, and their crops were able to get a break from the sun, and they were able to get a break from the sun. And they realized how beautiful the night was, and that all the pretty colors that came with the night, and the stars, how beautiful the stars were. And so there was like a newfound appreciation for night. So after they told this story, Solwi comes back to bed, and she wakes up the next morning excited and proud of her skin, and she associates it with that. And she goes to school and she's just like a whole new person. She's so excited, she's so bright, she's so happy, and she's so proud of her skin tone. And anytime that she, you know, starts to feel a certain way, she looks out into the night sky and sees the beautiful stars, and really and remembers the story, and appreciates her midnight skin, as she calls it. And so this story, like I said, absolutely my favorite. I forgot the pictures I marked. There's so many. But this is Solwee and her family, and then her at school with her friends. Oh, sorry. And then another picture was where she tried to fix her skin tone, where she tried to erase it, and she tried to add makeup and eat the lightest and brightest foods. And then another picture that I thought was so beautiful was of the sisters, the night and day sisters, and how gorgeous they both are. And at the end, it has a beautiful picture of Solwee feeling beautiful inside and out, as it says. So I love this book, and the activity I actually chose for this book goes along with the second book I have. So for this activity, I, again, work with pre-K, so I'm thinking, and I want it to be hands-on for the assignment, but we do hands-on anyways. So I thought a great activity would be mixing paint shades to find your beautiful and unique color, and letting the children practice painting and mixing the shades and discussing, of course, the beauty of every shade, and then having them paint a picture of themselves, like do their face but not do their hair, because the next book is actually going to go with this. So it's going to be like a 2-for-1. But as they do this, they'll discuss the different colors of their eyes and their skin and their lips and their hair, and just all the different things that are unique and nothing negative about. So for this one, they would actually be mixing the paints and doing that hands-on painting and drawing or coloring with, you know, their eyes and stuff. So that was Solwee. And then the last book, like I said, the activity kind of goes with this. It's called Cool Cuts. And I thought this book was so cute. It's a little bit younger. It's for 3 to 7 years old, so preschool to 2nd grade. It's Cool Cuts by Michelle Renee Rowe. And she also did a girl version, a companion book, because this is all boys. So she did a companion book for girls called Happy Hair. And it basically, a short description because it doesn't have a lot of words. I'll go ahead and show the pictures. So it just shows different hairstyles on this page, and then it has positive words of affirmation on the other one. So I can do any task, just ask, and I'm born to be awesome is at the end of every page. And then this one, the cool cornrows, the little cute kid, and it, again, try again, next time I win, I'm born to be awesome. And then another one I just want to highlight was the afro, the full fro, which I love. And again, those words of affirmation on the side. So this one's a little bit, like, the words aren't as much of a story. So basically, it's a book that just celebrates the different hair types, and for young children of color. It does have some children who are a little bit lighter skinned, but most of them are children of color, whether they are African American or Hispanic or whatever. So, but it just talks about the positive and basically just showing them in a very positive lighting and having a good representation of them, as well as giving them the positive words about, like, they are awesome, and just giving that positive, like, self-esteem basically, and promoting positive self-esteem to both boys in this book and girls in the other book, which I want to get. These are actually from my classroom. I don't have the girl version of this. And the activity for it would be a follow-up to the Solwee book. And I thought after they paint and create their colors, oh, I'm running out of time, they can find different materials to do for their hair. So we could talk about curls and afro and use actual art materials for the hair of the painting. So that would be the activity for this book. It would be a two-parter. Because I really want to talk about the textures of hair, the looks of hair, and just show a big positive reflection of that. And then another great activity for these would be the egg diversity test, which is where you just break both eggs and show that they are both similar inside. So Well, I'm about to run out of time. So those are my 3 books. They're great, and I highly recommend them. So thank you.